that resonate with them, but they don't know they're accessing it from there. But it's an author that did it for me. She's got a YouTube channel. She's on Facebook. People can reach out to her. She does it. She charges. She does it over Zoom.
Yeah, Diane, that was copyrighted. That was that agenda thing. I had to delete it straight away before they gave me a strike.
There's a couple of issues that I constantly see across a lot of brands. There's resource and there's data. So as it relates to resource, there's often a workload issue. And so you've got these...
Well, that's the theory, that we all have somebody out there that looks just like you and I, that there are only a certain number of shapes that a skull can form and facial features can make. But there are other people out there that believe that this is actually a sign of people that are immortal. Some people are starting to say that they were vampires, but we're talking about vampires. And there are references to Acro and other things that, and then that also reincarnation was taking place, that these sort of certain bloodline families are very powerful people. And let's just say, for argument's sake, let's just call them the Rothschilds, that they could...
It was looking very interesting too, Di. It's a shame we couldn't watch it.
Come back and have another go with someone else. So this time they're going to be a high...
I had a big thing at the front of the video saying no copyright, share and all that. As soon as I play it within 10 seconds, they give me a copyright warning.
Ranking military official. Next time they're going to be a Hollywood actor. Next time they're going to be a world leader. And it's giving them an opportunity to have a go at different career paths and experience more things. Others would say that actually what we're talking about here is something similar to the Count of Saint Germain. These people live forever and don't age, and they just keep reappearing.
The world keeps lying, but he won't retreat on his quest for truth. Yeah. Truth, quest for truth. They can't stop me, they can't block me. Moving through, got that fire, they can't block me. Quest for truth, breaking chains, making waves. That's what I do. When they hate, I create.
Welcome everyone to Pounders Quest. I'm your host, John Pounders, and today I have back one of the fan favorites, Guy Anderson. You guys saw him last time. We were talking about the Cabbage Patch Babies and the cloning, and we really didn't get into it as much as I really wanted to, so I had him back. It hasn't been that long, but I really wanted to hear more about this. Guy, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me back, John. It's great to be here again with you. Thank you.
Well, tell people what they need to know about you. I know that last time we talked a little bit and you were able to discuss a little bit about your life, but let's pretend like some of these people, this is their first time encountering what you do. So let us know what we should know about you.
Yeah, sure. Over here, I'm considered a tinfoil hat.
Di, if you hear Mike come on, will you give me a heads up? I'm completely lost the time. I don't know when he comes.
I'm a conspiracy theorist, which is something, it's a badge I wear with pride, but it's really seen here as something that's a negative rather than a positive. I am a Freemason. I haven't been for many years. I left about 7 years ago. I joined to try and fill in some blanks in our occulted knowledge and history, but it didn't really work out that way. And now, having spoken out about them, I wouldn't be allowed back anyway. But my journey began with my father, and he was really into David Icke. And after that, Graham Hancock, and I started reading his books from Atlantis to the Sphinx, the Holy Blood and the Holy Grail. And I just tried over the years to get as much information as I can. And then really for me, 2020 compounded the issue even further. I'd been down the rabbit hole, so to speak, for a long time, but 2020 opened my eyes, and that's when I discovered Tartaria. But of all the chapters in my first book, which is Tesla and the Cabbage Patch Kids, it seems that the Cabbage Patch element, the human cloning and repopulation, was what captured most people's imagination and interest. and that was the subject for my second book that came out in May this year. So I'm still delving. I look into everything. I've been looking into Richard Branson recently and why people get knighted. I've been looking into Project Paperclip, Operation Paperclip, sorry, a little bit into Bluebeam, but I'm always down the rabbit hole somewhere, John. But at the moment, really, I suppose most people.
Hey, Johnny, good to see you.
My work are thinking about Tartaria and cloning.
I would imagine too, when you take this filter of what you know about
Thanks,
the
Ty.
cloning and you put it over almost any subject, you're going to see layers that make sense together. And because this is a weird thing, this is something that is just almost unbelievable to I would say most people in the world. The majority, you're going to be like, this is crazy. The idea that any kind of cloning is even possible is crazy, even though there is so much evidence and proof that cloning is a real thing.
Yeah.
I remember when I was I think it was when I was a kid, they were talking about cloning Dolly the sheep, and they had showed this. This was years ago. You know, we're talking it's 2025 now. So the idea that
I remember when they created Dolly the sheep, and I thought, gee, God will be pissed off with that. You're demanding you put a soul into something you made.
doesn't happen right now.
Come on, Moo, hop up.
Is
Come
kind
on.
of crazy, but the idea that it
Jump
happened
up.
many years ago
Good
just
girl.
kind of blows my mind. And you mentioned something that I didn't get to ask in the last broadcast, or you mentioned something and I wanted to ask you a question about it. You mentioned being in the Freemasons and not finding the occult knowledge that you were looking for. And from what I understood, that isn't that what Freemasonry is supposed to be about, to be able to find the secrets of the occult? So what were you able to find there?
I think that ultimately I never got high up enough to really get anything juicy. Most people end up where I was. I was in for, well, I joined over 20 years ago, and it's progressive. So after you've been in for a few years, that you are what they call a steward initially, which means that you are serving wine and helping set up the room for the meal after a lodge meeting, which is called the festive board. So you're kind of a bit of a dog's body, and everybody goes through that to start with. And then slowly you progress, and eventually you become the master of the lodge, and that's a position that you hold for a year. And then the following year, you're called a past master. And that's where it comes from. That's where the actual saying comes from. And at that rank, you are a master mason, a master Freemason. But that's the third degree. There's 33, and then 66 darker ones that people don't really know much about after that. So I imagine once you get higher up, you start to get more, knowledge. But I wanted to find out who built the pyramids, and I wanted to find more about King Solomon's temple, and ultimately I wanted to find out who was running the show. And I'd even considered joining the Knights Templar. That was something that fascinated me.
Hey, Vaz, good to see you, mate.
All of the stories, and I think things like the Da Vinci Code compounded that for me. But I realised that actually that there were reasons for joining. Mine was occulted knowledge. I wanted to learn more, learn things that we couldn't find in a library or in books on bookshelves in shops. I kind of learned bits and pieces, but lots of people really join, I think, because they want to use it. They can accelerate their career by being a Freemason. But there are other people that join because literally they're looking to expand their social circle. We had quite a few widowers in my lodge. And it's funny, actually, because I went through the comments from our last chat, and someone said that I wasn't a Freemason. And I was, if you're interested, I have to show you a photograph of me with my youngest son on the day he was initiated. And I'll share that with you if you want to see it.
Yeah, it's crazy because you can tell people you're not a Freemason, they'll accuse you of being one.
Yeah,
you tell them you are, and they'll accuse you of not being one. That's pretty funny.
It's weird, isn't it? Because it's not a thing. There are thousands, hundreds of thousands of them. But I think it gets really juicy when you get higher up. And I personally believe that anybody that's a 33rd degree Freemason is probably not going to disclose that willingly, and certainly not, to a wider audience. I'm sure
Back at
they
you,
have a select
Vast.
few that know their very close friends and family, but it's not something you would broadcast. I've never knowingly met one, that's for certain. But yeah, I didn't join thinking it was some sort of a satanic organization and they were dealing with black magic or witchcraft. I thought it was. I thought they ran everything, and I wanted to find out who was in charge, and I wanted to find out what they knew. So mine was kind of it was for information gathering, for my own curiosity, because I'm obsessed with conspiracy theories and occulted knowledge. So I was a tattoo artist at the time. I didn't think that joining was going to benefit me financially, because how could it? Most of these people weren't about to come and book in for a tattoo. I wanted to learn stuff, but it's a closed shop, John. And I think to get high up, really high up, it's going to be down to who you know, rather than how hard you work or how often you turn up or whether you remember your lines in a ceremony or so. It's connections, really. There were an awful lot of police, high-ranking police in my lodge because of where I was. I was right in the centre of London. I was very close to, the Met. I was very close to Scotland Yard. In fact, we ate there once because there isn't a dining facility, a Grand Lodge in Great Queen Street where I went. They just swarming with police, really. And they were using it to get on,
Yeah, and I would imagine that the Tartaria thing, you would think that would be something that in lodges they would know about. Do they not know about this, or is this something that you said before that you found out that they were actually hiding Tartaria? They were part of the conspiracy to cover it up. And I didn't really dig into that too much. I was going to ask you more about that, but I've seen the CIA document that shows, I believe, the Communist Party wanting to cover up the whole idea of Tartaria. But what about this? What about the Freemasons part in that?
Yeah, there was a few. I haven't looked at it for a few years now, but when I started researching Tartaria, and I had left, I'd stopped going to the lodge meetings before I started researching Tartaria. But there is a document online. I don't know if it's a book, but it's sort of viewed as a PDF, and you can.
That Tartaria gets a bit of attention.
Probably type it in and find it, and it's basically stating that the Freemasons were tasked with assisting in removing Tartaria from local libraries. Any references to it in the public domain, they were tasked with actually helping completely remove it. And it's quite old. This is quite an old document, but it came back up again around the same time as that CIA file was declassified. So people should be able to find it online. I'll certainly try and hunt it out. I used it when I wrote my book, but I started researching it 5 years ago. And I never actually printed it off. I just saved it. And it's on a website that people should be able to find. So, yeah, it was the Freemasons being asked to assist in the removal of Tartaria.
It's wild. So it probably wouldn't take that long if you really kind of think about how many generations it might take to remove this. We talked a lot.
Gee, that's a hard word to say, Shawnee. Chikungunya. That's chikungunya. What's that?
Last episode about the orphans and the asylums, which is crazy to think about that there's this many people that were pushed into these asylums and orphanages and kind of repopulated. We didn't really get into the Cabbage Patch and cloning idea of it too much. And so I wanted to give you an opportunity to further explain what we were talking about in that episode and kind of give people a fuller grasp on this, because I've seen the pictures of where it looks like there's an actor that he looks like the spinning image of someone we spin up from the late or early 1900s, an actor. They look almost identical. Is this what we're talking about here?
So, are you thinking of the photographs that we often see? Where I mean, there's a really good one of Jay-Z. There's a photograph of someone just sort of. I think they're sort of leaning against a house or the front of a building in Harlem, and it looks exactly like Jay-Z. There's Eddie Murphy. Lots and lots of images of what we would call doppelgangers, and that's kind of a different thing. That's the that's the theory, that we all have somebody out there that looks just like you and I, that there are only a certain number of shapes that a skull can form and facial features can make. But there are other people out there that believe that this is actually a sign of people that are immortal. Now, I don't know. I don't know how anybody could possibly know. But I in my new book, Rise of the Clones, I did actually write a chapter on it. And concluded that we just don't know. We're not high up enough the food chain to find out. But my sort of research came from lots of people that assisted me when I put a shout out on Facebook saying, help, I'm looking into this. Some people started saying that they were vampires. We're talking about vampires, and there are references to Acro and other things that, and then that also reincarnation was taking place, that these sort of certain bloodline families are very powerful people. And let's just say, for argument's sake, let's just call them the Rothschilds, that they could come back and have another go.
For argument's sake, let's just call them the Rothschild.
With someone else. So this time they're going to be a high-ranking military official. Next time they're going to be a Hollywood actor. Next time they're going to be a world leader. And it's giving them an opportunity to have a go at different career paths and experience more things. Others would say that actually what we're talking about here is something similar to the Count of Saint Germain. These people live forever and don't age, and they just keep reappearing. And I don't know, John. I mean, have you got any thoughts on it?
Man, it's so strange because I talked to a guy on the phone the other day, and this guy is if I said his name, people would know who he is. He's barely, at least in the fight realm, pretty famous. And he was telling me he just had a bunch of surgeries. I think he's had 26 surgeries. His most recent one was the one on his neck, and this is his second neck surgery. And he was telling me that, and this is just, him telling me this, and I've heard this kind of similar story, that he had a near-death experience type thing to where he experienced another realm, I guess you could say, and he believed that in reincarnation, he believed that he would be going to the next life, and he was able to see all of his stuff before that. And so this seems very similar to what we're talking about, what they believe, that they believe that when they die, they're going to be either put in another body, or they're going to be completely resurrected in that same body, or their body's going to redo that. I don't know if it's the same thing, but it seems very similar. He talked about the halls of Amonte. I believe this is how he pronounced that. Seeing all of that stuff. And so,
just for the record, I'm not in the clones from the 1820s and that. Modern ones, yeah, I believe that, but not ones from 1810 or whatever.
It wouldn't surprise me if cloning technology is a legitimate thing, if they haven't figured out a way, if any of this stuff is real, if they're able to figure out a way to harness the soul and put it back. I don't know. I mean, this all sounds sci-fi, Star Trek-y to me, but at the same time, if the technology's there, it's probably possible, but it would seem that if the technology's been there at all, that they might have that ability to harness that soul and put it back into a body that they desire, or maybe just put it into a body, period. Maybe that's why they do these weird rituals that they do. I don't really know, but dude, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that. I really don't understand it all. I've delved into a lot of weird books out there that are I'm sure they're in the lodges. You read all of the different magic books and ideas that they have, and it does seem that they have some kind of ritual that they at least believe works to where their soul is able to be transformed back into another body, or or their bodies will be able, the rising sun idea, where the sun will one day raise the bodies like the pharaohs and people like that. I don't know, man. It's weird stuff.
Go on, move up.
There's a couple of
Come on.
topics there you've raised that are really interesting. And one is, first of all, that the idea of transferring your consciousness, your memory, and your consciousness to another being. Let's say it's a clone, an empty vessel that's been made in your image, a twin, but looks like you, but doesn't actually have any of the information. And that's a service that's provided, allegedly provided at least, by a company called Clonaid. Clonaid came to fame, quite a few years ago now, by announcing the birth of the first cloned human, a girl they named, ironically, Eve. If people are interested, I've written a chapter on them. I've been on their website. I've dug as deep as I can. I've gone back through the history.
Diane, Palestine doesn't want peace. There's more money in terrorism than there is in peace.
If the founder and the CEO, I've traced where I believe their actual laboratory and if you like, the actual operational aspect of their business to be, because they're in Canada. But I believe that they're actually operating out of Mexico, because the laws are a lot more relaxed there on cloning. So Project Lazarus is a service that they provide where they claim they can transfer your memory, your consciousness. Now, I've tried to contact them, and oddly enough, at the time I was researching them, I couldn't actually access their website through my internet provider, my broadband provider. I had to go through 4G. I had to actually use my phone and go through 4G. It wouldn't let me use their website. And you fill an application form and tell them what you want, whether it is the consciousness being transferred into another body that looks like you, or you just want to be cloned, or you want to clone a loved one. Or, of course, they'll clone pets. And the president of Argentina has had 4 bull mastiffs cloned by them. When his first bull mastiff, which was named Conan, died, he's actually had 4, and he's proudly got photographs that you can see of him posing with them. But it's very, very expensive. So according to Clonaid, that's a service that's provided, the memory consciousness. So our body gets a bit tired and worn out, and we can have another go and start all over again, knowing everything we already know. And wow, wouldn't that be amazing? Imagine going back to school and knowing what you know now. The arguments you'd get into with your teachers would be incredible. But of course, the people that can afford that are hardly going to go to mainstream school. The other thing you mentioned was your consciousness, well, ascending, I suppose. When we die, what happens? Do we reincarnate? Or what actually happens? And I was looking into that recently, and the Gnostics believed that actually the firmament prevents that from happening, that we're trapped. And if the firmament was removed, we can truly ascend. And then I started thinking that if our connection and if all the information we receive and all the information we transmit is going to the heavens, so to speak, does chemtrailing affect that? With all of the metals they put in there, is that, and that with 5G and other technologies that they're using, does that actually stop that from happening? Do we end up in this cycle where we keep on reincarnating because we can't truly ascend and return to the source? So that's worth looking into. The Gnostics certainly think it's that it's something. But I was having a bit of a dive into that the other day. But again, it's one of those things, isn't it? We don't know. We don't know what happens until it happens. And I don't really want to find out just yet.
Well, we know this. I know that this is what we must say we know this. We look at the ancient texts, and there is at least a group of people that do believe and do hold to the idea of this reincarnation, warriors from the past coming back and doing it all over again. This seems to be, there's these stories I've listened to that seem to be positive affirmations of this actually happening. It looks like this person comes back into this body and has the story of somebody else. It just seems that it happens to some people. I don't know what this is, this whole idea. I mean, I don't know if it happens to everybody. It seems that I think that, you know, Jesus, when he came, he gave us the ability to be able to ascend, you know, be able to actually become like the sons of God, whereas we're not trapped in this reality. I don't know if that's what he meant when he said you must be born again. I mean, there's so many things there that are a mystery to all of this, but this idea of people coming back and remembering it, I know this for me, for myself, I don't remember any past life. I mean, I can say that for a fact. I can tell you, if I did, I would tell people that I remember it, right? That would be a great selling point for any kind of person out there that really wants to like help people out there. If they could really prove that they were alive in a past life and now they can offer that information. There's a lot of people that claim it, but I don't know that. I feel like if you're actually able to come back after gaining all that information in your first life, you're going to be doing something pretty amazing. You're not going to just be sitting back and, you know, in the background half your life or whatever. It's going to be like targeted from the gate, from the early days of your life. And I'm not saying that that's not possible. There are people in this world that seem to have fast-tracked their life to what most people don't accomplish until they're very old in age. I mean, like this Charlie Kirk guy, for instance, 31 years old and already accomplished more than most people will ever accomplish in their life times 10. You know, it's like these, and Donald Trump, like he says he's never drank a cup of, you know, even a little drink of alcohol. What kind of insight is that into life to know better than to ever divulge in any of that stuff? I mean, what kind of insight was he fast-tracked because of the people that raised him, or did he remember something from the past? There's so many weird ideas with all of this that make you wonder. I know I'm not. I would love to say that I am all wise and remember all things, but it's just not the case. What about you, man? Are you all wise and remember all things?
I'm the same as you. You know, it's interesting because, you know, a lot of posts that I put up and a lot of interviews that I've done, you get.
I wonder what the latest is with Atlas 3.
People that will flatly disagree with your point of view. And for me personally, I'm kind of with Marcus Aurelius. All I really know for certain, for absolute certain, is that I know nothing at all. And I can't state this is what happens when you die. This is who Jesus was. This is the earth. It's a spinning ball or it's a flat realm. This is what happens on the moon. And this is what's beyond the ice balls. We can't possibly go around stating those sort of things as fact because we don't know. And like you said, if we had all of this information from a past life, you know, we would surely know, wouldn't we? Or do we need to go through, you know, therapy or past life regression to try and get this information out? And I have tried that. I've given that a go, and I was very skeptical about it. But I went into it with an open heart and an open mind, and I try and keep my mind open. And you know, I get into arguments with a friend of mine all the time who has decided that everything he thinks is a matter of fact, and when someone throws an opinion at me or an idea at me, I would never ever dismiss it. I always accept the fact that people's journeys have got them to a very different place, and everyone has the right to their own opinion. And you know, you shouldn't criticize other people's opinions because we don't know why they've got it. We don't know if they know things from a past life that resonate with them, but they don't know they're accessing it from there. But it's an author that did it for me. She's got a YouTube channel. She's on Facebook. People can reach out to her. She does it. She charges. She does it over Zoom. And her name's Elizabeth Hancock. And she's very well respected. And I asked her.
Oh, the dog's trot on the remote again.
Cosley, built for Aussie gardens. Discover the difference.
Introducing the all-new Subaru Forester with next generation strong hybrid with over 1,000 kilometre range. Get ready to own the road and conquer the wild. It's you and Subaru for a world discovered.
Our Futures is a series of online programs delivered in high schools that teach students about alcohol.
Why am I obsessed? Out of all of the conspiracy theories out there, why am I obsessed with Tartaria? Why suddenly, 5 or 6 years ago, did this become an obsession? And so she did this past life regression. And she got me actually, she managed to get me to a point where she got me to describe myself. And I was a red-headed giant. And by giant, I mean substantially taller than me, not 20 or 30 feet high, but I would guess sort of, 7 to 9 feet tall. I was somewhere that looked like a Nordic country, and I was a farmer. And all of a sudden, out of the sky, I had 3 daughters and a wife. And the wife looked like Dawn French, who's an English actress. And all of a sudden, there's comets everywhere, meteors everywhere. The sky's full of these objects hitting the earth. Everything's on fire. My wife has been killed. My house is on fire. My children are trapped inside it. And I am marching. And over days and days and days, I'm marching in a specific direction. And everything's burned and smouldering. There's hardly anybody around. And she said, "Where are you going?" And I just said, "Agartha. I'm going for help." And she said, "Where did that come from?" But the problem is, I don't know if half of that is just my imagination, wanting that to be a true story, or if actually she had unraveled something that was real and I had lived before. And I don't know. I've got no idea what went on then, but I was very descriptive. I just described what I was wearing, how I looked, what life was like. I described my children, things that were a little bit odd. But I don't know if that was just me wanting to think that, But yeah, if anyone's interested, her name's Elizabeth Hancock, and I put it on Facebook when it happened. So people want to reach out to her and get a session booked in, then I have no problem with her sharing with them what I said to her and my experiences, because I put it on social media so people could see what they thought of my session, because I went in, I've got to say, I was a little bit cynical.
It's wild, man, because even so nowadays they're trying to get people, I guess, comfortable with the idea of being able to pass on their consciousness to something else. And what we're talking about here is kind of at the heart of all this, because you have to be able to trust that your consciousness is able to transfer on to something else and be controlled to be able to do this. I mean, I think we all believe to a certain extent, most people do, unless you're a nihilist, that you continue. We're not physical, just one physical creature that dies and is gone forever, but we continue. Most people believe that, at least. I think that I would say most people at least hope for that and have faith that that is the case.
Okay, guys, I'm not feeling this. They're talking about reincarnation and they're hardly pushing Jesus, so I might go elsewhere. Just give me a chance to load something.
And what they're trying to convince people of nowadays is that they have the capabilities, such as in like maybe Clone-Aid, like you're talking about. And I do remember Clone-Aid because I saw there's a rapper, and I can't remember his name, but he claims to be a clone from Clone-Aid. He talks about it openly. What's his name?
Kid Boo.
Kid Boo, yes. Yeah, Kid Boo, okay. Kid Boo. And it feels weird saying that, but yeah, Kid Boo has a clone. He believes they take the bone or whatever from the middle here and pass it on to the other body. But that takes a lot of faith for people to just be like, okay, yeah, you're gonna transfer my consciousness over, because just because they have your memories doesn't necessarily mean that they have you. You know, it's one of those things that they require so much just belief in the science to believe that, because you could say, hey, John, I'm getting ready to go over to this other body and it has all your information, and then they could take you down, and then that other body could wake up, be like, hey, it's me, I told you, you know, I've got you. But it could just be your memories. It couldn't, you know, maybe it's not you. So it's so wild. And then this personal experience, like you said, it could easily be your imagination or your dream state, you know, somewhere that something that you've imagined, or maybe
about this No Kings protest, which of course they were making fun of on SNL. We'll get into that. We got some stuff to talk about with regards to J.K. Rowling. 2 more actresses come out in her defense, actually laughing at the whole rainbow. Now we have actresses laughing at it. We're not gonna stand up for that anymore. We're not gonna pretend like we care. We'll get into that. We have also Hassan Piker and actually a ton of other stuff. Even a Kim Kardashian one. Let's just get into this. We'll start here with Alyssa Farah from The View back in January. If he gets the Israeli hostages out, I promise I will wear a MAGA hat for one day on this show.
My point when I say I'm not going to be apocalyptic, it's not changing a tune. It's not making every single thing a 5-alarm fire. If he gets the Israeli hostages out, I promise I will wear a MAGA hat for one day on the show and say, thank you for doing it.
Of course, she hasn't done it yet. She is literally not done it yet. People are actually looking every day at the show, seeing if she will wear it or not. She's clearly not going to, obviously. We have AI, sort of AI people making pictures of her doing it, though. But not her actually doing it. And, of course, now we have SNL making fun of Kristi Noem, Pam. And what's hilarious is our administration is embracing this. Whenever South Park, SNL makes fun of them, they actually use the clips and promote it on their own social media. I'll show you that as well. But here's a clip of Tina Fey as Ice Barbie and Amy as Pam Bondi. Check this. Yes, indeed. Brunettes that Donald Trump listens to. We have here ICE. We actually have Homeland Security using the clip from SNL to promote ICE. Check this out. I have to turn off the music. I don't know if it's copyrighted. I don't want to waste time trying to fix that later. But you can see here, obviously, a promotion for ICE. They're actually talking about, they're actually making fun of and mocking in SNL people being recruited for ICE. Now they're using it for their own advertising. Pretty hilarious, actually. We're going to get into, like I said, a ton of stuff. We got some strange things going on this week. And you can smell it. We're going to get into all of that in this video. Definitely going to be this big, massive protest in D.C. I talked about it in the previous video. But actually, there's some new stuff. We're going to get into all of that and much more. First, I'm going to mention food supply, 25-year shelf life. Link is in the description. 4 months worth for $6.97. You're going to definitely want to get that, considering all the absolutely awesome apocalyptic things happening around us. And I'm going to cover the digital eye. Actually, it's not even the digital ID. Yeah, it is the digital ID. I'm going to cover that, but also AI over on my other channel. Apparently, BlackRock with a video of Larry Fink coming out. I'll get into that over my other channel. You might want to go check that out. It's pretty crazy, actually. But yeah, go get that. Link is in the description. This book here, The Lost Ways. How your great-great-grandfather lived without electricity. How to build a solar, do things around the house as they did in the old days. Hundreds of pages. So I'm sure you're going to definitely need that book before Larry Fink turns the power off. Yes, of course. Link is in the description. Also, of course, my website. Go check it out, GR Videos. I also have another page to my main website, godrules.net, which I made back in like 1998, if I can actually open it. Here we go. Link is in the description for that. Actually, I should go to the right page. All right, links. All right, so I got a link page link below. It shows all my other links from my actual original website I even have articles on the Apocrypha. I got research articles that represent things I've covered on this channel at various times. Link is in the description for all that. Go check it out. Let's get back to the video. So we have here Robert De Niro pushing nationwide the No Kings protest, and they're going to make this into a very massive thing. I'm starting to see a number of stories. I knew it was going to be more than nothing. I knew this is a huge thing, what they're doing.
Bob De Niro just does washed up gangster movies anyway.
Have here an update that there's going to be over 2,500 protests across 50 states, and I think this time around it's going to be much, much larger than last time. They're clearly trying to make this into more than just simply that as well. I think this is going to be coordinated with lots of different things happening all at the same time. Various strange news stories will pop up in your feed, I'm guessing. This is clearly something very much orchestrated. We have here Pam Bondi. We just saw her on SNL. You got the real one here talking about this.
And that's one of the things about Antifa. You've heard President Trump say multiple times, they are organized, they are a criminal organization, and they're very organized. You're seeing people out there with thousands of signs that all match, pre-bought, pre-put together. They're organized, and someone is funding it. We're going to get to the funding of Antifa. We're going to get.
Goodness gracious, we already know who is funding them. We have like 10 different organizations. We covered it like multiple times on this channel. Tides, Ford, the foundation that makes these planetariums and various places you can go with your family. Honestly, it's kind of interesting. You got Tides, Ford, of course, Soros, and a host of other ones, including even Warren Buffett's as well, are funding these things. And we've seen that over the years. So obviously that's something I think we're going to see a huge deal of things happening over the next few days. Right now it's kind of quiet. And then all of a sudden it'll just be out of nowhere. It'll be in the news everywhere. You'll see me, mark my words. We also have, of course, Keira Knightley laughs off, of course, the rainbow backlash. This is actually kind of interesting. Check this out. We're seeing actresses now, multiple actresses and actors going against what they were told they had to support. Check this out.
Saw your voicing Professor Umbridge in the new Harry Potter audiobooks. I was wondering, are you aware that some fans are calling for a boycott, given J.K. Rowling's ongoing campaign against trans people?
The race you play make the world more wild. Yes! Never stop playing.
Home Depot hates when you do this, but they can't stop you. So you really want to just coat the whole thing and then just let it soak in for a few minutes. Once you've got it covered, give it a quick wipe and voila, good as new. All right, so my name is Sarah.
I was not aware of that, no. I'm very sorry. I think we're all living in a period of time right now. We're all going to have to figure out how to live together, aren't we?
She, of course, laughs. A lot of people are pointing out how she just simply laughed it off.
I was wondering, are you aware that some fans are calling for a boycott, given J.K. Rowling's ongoing campaign against trans people?
I was not aware of that, no. I'm very sorry.
Like she wouldn't know. Of course she would know about it, obviously. Anybody who has half a brain that's been paying attention to the news will know about this. Obviously, she knows. She was working with her on this audiobook. Kind of ridiculous to ask her that question in the first place. You have, of course, she makes a very simple stance. I mean, this isn't like she's a conservative or right-wing or anything of the sort. There are no trans, of course, kids. No one's born in the wrong body. This is what she is saying. There are only adults like you prepared to sacrifice.
Shawnee, some people say Eve's fall from the tree was because she was seduced by Satan. Well, the sons weren't giants, so she wasn't seduced by Satan at all.
Twice to help the minors to bolster your belief in an ideology that will end up wreaking more harm than lobotomies. And obviously, this is some sordid history in America's medical profession, all these things that were done in the past, maybe 80 years ago. It's been quite a while, actually. But you have also Helena Carter is the latest Harry Potter star to defend J.K. Rowling's repeated rainbow comments. Carter described the public's backlash as horrendous, a load of bollocks. In Americanese, that would be a load of BS. Yeah, indeed. I 100% agree with her on that. So we have all these actresses now backing up J.K. Rowling. This may be why. This is why Emma Watson is also backpedaling, because trans identification is in a free fall. The fad is over. And I called it a fad. I called it a fad like a year ago. I was saying this thing is a fad. It will be gone eventually. And now it's disappearing. Because most people are not this, even though there's so many of them identifying as this. It was just some weird fad going on. You have here Keira Knightley laugh in her video. Obviously, a lot of people freaking out over this. Not happy at all. She literally snorted at the suggestion she would take him seriously. Yeah, of course. I mean, I don't even have a problem with those who want to be trans or are trans. I mean, you got Blair White, famous YouTuber, trans, defends J.K. Rowling in what she says. I think there's a difference between being trans and being one of these people with this certain, I guess you'd say, ideology that are being promoted everywhere in our society. Of course, now we have Hassan Piker as well. Once again, caught another video. This is probably the 10th video showing him doing stuff. We had him pulling the dog's tail. We had so many videos. I showed him grabbing the controller. We showed the controller on the screen. I can't talk for some reason today. It was the exact model that everyone was saying, 300, the Model 300. Check this out. Now we have him in an older video getting caught not being nice to his dogs. Check this out.
I don't know if putting them in a confined space like this together is a good idea, but we're about to see very quickly, she will most likely recognize, she will very quickly learn that that's probably a mistake. Because if she keeps pushing Fiona, Fiona is going to bite. Oh, there we go. Good job, Fiona. Kaya is really funny when she's scared. Being scared, but it gives me anxiety. Maybe it's me. No, I
Kaya
love her
is
to bite
the
her.
dog that we're talking about.
I know Fiona wants out. She's not getting out, though.
Man, who's laughing at this poor dog getting beat up? What an idiot.
Fiona snaps at her. She'll just go, ah, 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 and like run away like a fucking goofball crying. It's the funniest
See what I mean? Like, it's the
thing on the fucking
he
planet.
thinks it's hilarious, right? So you can see there's all these videos
What an
of him
a-hole.
essentially getting pleasure out of watching his dog in pain on numerous occasions, multiple occasions at this point. It's pretty ridiculous. It's pretty obvious the guy clearly is not suited to have this dog Kaya in his possession.
Yeah.
And that's just one more example. We've seen so many of them at this point. I've actually shown numerous clips already. It's pretty undeniable at this point. And I think the fact that I can't talk is amazing today. For some reason, I keep messing up. I don't know what's going on here. We have here Kristen Bell. This is a really bizarre video. Publicly telling her husband she wishes she slept with, of course, more men before him. And this is on his own show. This is on his show. He's interviewing his wife, and she's talking about wanting to be with other men. This is so ridiculous. Check this out.
Kristen is a little regretful. She was very active, and she wishes she was even more sexually active.
I just wish I butterflied around a little bit.
Can you imagine sitting there and you're listening to your wife talk about how she wished she had spread her legs for more men in her 20s before she met you? Whoa!
This is like, what reminds me of Will Smith or something. Jada, just like, bro, you're not really being, what I would call a man in this situation. Maybe this is embarrassing for you. You shouldn't be accepting this kind of conversation, particularly on your own show. I mean, at least in the case of Will Smith, Jada was on another show doing it to him. I mean, that's still just as terrible almost. I mean, literally is almost the exact same thing. But you know what I'm saying? It's not it's not like he controlled the show, right? In the case of this guy, he's controlling. I think his name's Jackie. Well, I don't know what the guy's name, something like that. Jacka, some weird name. What the hell is going on with men and women? It's just bizarre. You know, the whole world is just crazy at this point. You have Kim Kardashian coming up with the most ridiculous things in the world. Look at this. Oh, you shaved down there? Okay, so maybe you should buy my underwear that puts a fake one on. Oh my goodness, this is so dumb. She also did some weird bras that she sold
It
too.
is pretty dumb.
I don't even want to show you. It's so ridiculous. It's super cringe. It's super cringe. She's got this line of stuff she's selling like that. What the hell, man? Then you got, of course, this Bad Bunny guy that was going to be at the Super Bowl halftime show. Now there is apparently a petition to replace him with the King of Country, George Strait, and they're trying to get enough signatures to get the NFL's attention to replace Bad Bunny with someone that would probably be a little bit more popular, I would say, at the halftime show. No one even knows who this Bad Bunny is, obviously. At any rate, so you got that story as well. Multiple petitions have popped up online. I mean, there's a lot of people really disgusted. I don't know what the NFL's doing. It's absolutely insane. Why would they even continue going this direction? You've seen all these get won't go broke companies. Why are you doing that? It's like apparently they just don't. They want to make less money, I guess. And whoever put their ads on the NFL Super Bowl are going to be very disappointed when they find out half as many people are watching. As usual, they paid mega prices for their ad infomercial, commercials, whatever, and will make hardly any money off it. I showed this before. Papa Roach, Jacob E. Shaddix, the lead singer, giving his life to Christ. We're seeing a lot more people getting more vocal about their faith. And I'm going to get into some crazy stuff on my other channel. So that you want to go check that out. It's about BlackRock and Larry Fink. Kind of what some of you guys think. Let me know in the comment section below. And thanks for watching.
If you frequently need to go to the bathroom late at night.
Oh, man.
Hollywood is absolutely melting down. This is Tony.
Hang on, guys. I've got to find something else.
Looks like they're not exactly happy with our president and, of course, his administration, particularly this government shutdown because of what they are intending to do next. We're going to get into all that in this video. We have SNL freaking out. We got The View. The lady named Alyssa Farah on there completely stepping in it. We got a ton of other stuff to get in.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back for another edition of the Christian Contrarian. I'm Gary Wayne, author of the Genesis 6 Conspiracy, and this is episode 35, The Serpent Seed, Part 3, the Cash and Satan. And I'm thinking you might find that this is going to be the more simpler and obvious section to the three-part series I'm doing on the serpent seed from a literal perspective and to be understood from a literal perspective, because all of the details that I've talked about in part 1 and part 2 come together in such an obvious nature to what the end of the narrative says in Genesis 3 and the implications thereof are. So just as a quick review, we reviewed in section 1, we reviewed Genesis 4. And
I did
the
not.
lineages were together.
I didn't know.
The lineages, and then you get the full lineage of Seth in chapter 5. But Enos and Seth are listed in chapter 4. And in chapter 3, we went into the detail of the story in terms of the allegory and or selecting the right meaning, just as we needed to select the right meaning in chapter 4 with how Cain came about in terms of his birth, and understanding that there's a consistency to the application of the selections of the words that need to be used so that you don't put the narrative in contradiction. And what we found in part 1 and part 2 of the series is that selecting another meaning for a Hebrew word can be done, but you have to be careful, otherwise it now becomes in conflict with the rest of the narrative and other scripture. We're going to continue on that today as we talk about Nakash and Satan. So we're going to focus in on some meanings of some words again, as we've done in the last 2 parts. But we're going to be really focusing on sort of the outcome that makes things, I think, crystal clear. And I'm hoping you find it will as well. So let's start with the Nakash. And the Nakash is from the Hebrew word, for serpent. And that's 5172. And simply said, in terms of its definition, Nakash means serpent and or snake, just as it's translated in most English translations as serpent. And it is rooted in another word that means to hiss, and meaning enchanter and diviner. And so it's kind of important to understand that this is a physical sort of being, and it's into the mystical arts and is subject to the polytheist religions and the fallen angels as they distributed their religion right from the beginning on the earth to all peoples of the earth. And all of that's going to be very, very important. And the word serpent is used in Genesis 3:1, 3:2, 3:4, 13, and 14. And of course, as we get into the serpent's seed in 3:15. So it's important to understand who this player is, and we flesh it out as being a serpent or a snake. But it's a different kind of snake at this point in time, when the serpent or the Nakash is talking to Eve in the Garden of Eden. And in Genesis 3:1, we learn that it's a talking serpent. And it's an intelligent serpent. And it's a being. And it's distinct from Satan. And in the meaning, we don't even get Satan being linked to being this specific Satan, this specific being. And so there is no allegory even that we can use in Genesis 3 to overlay Satan as being the Nakash. That now becomes a little bit more obvious as we get into some more of the descriptions of what the Nakash is all about. So as we move into the word, first word that is really being, or the second word that's probably being used in the verse, is the word south. I want to focus on that because that's kind of the intelligence aspect of this being, and I want people to understand it's not what we think of snakes and serpents as of today. That's an important outcome of what happened in Genesis 3. So subtle is the word arum, and it means to be prudent, cunning, shrewd, and crafty. So just as in Job 5:12 and 15:5, you're going to find the word crafty, and it's going to go back to arum. And so what we understand is that this being was very intelligent and very cunning or crafty, not necessarily sexy. There's nothing to be said about an Nakash that's going to have anything to do with sex. And that's going to be, again, a common sort of principle that we're going to continue with as we progress in this chapter today. And what we're told in 3:1 is that the Nakash or the serpent is a beast. not an angel, although you can make a case that the beast empires or the beast antichrist are associated with angelic beings. I think it's perfectly fine to say that there's an association, just as Nakash is an enchanter or diviner and is the most subtle of the beasts of the field. I think it was a follower and a co-conspirator with Satan to bring down humankind. And again, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. And so beast comes from a very interesting word that has a few really important meanings to it. So again, we have to ensure we're applying the right application for the narrative so that there isn't any contradiction. So that's the Hebrew word che or hey, depending on how you want to pronounce that. Hebrew, or technically in how we pronounce a CH in English. And so that is the word life as it's used over 200 times, whether it's life or living or livest, all those different ones. It's probably going to come out to like 350 times just on a quick sort of count on that. But it can also mean beast, as in that animal, physical creature thing. So you've got a few different meanings, and we have to be careful that we're translating properly. So the narrative says that Nakash is a beast of the field. So it's alive, obviously, so you could apply that word to it. But when we dig a little bit deeper, I think they're tied together, but it's more beast and creature that we want to pull out of this thing, not an angelic being, but a physical animal of the field. And of course, field is a Hebrew word that means of the country, of the flat country, of the ground, of the earth, not of heaven. Okay, so now when we start tying this back in, is that you've got in Genesis 1, 20 and 30, you've got a creature of life being created. So when we look at life, that's che, and creature is also che. Or I'm not sorry, no, that's not quite right, but life is che, but it's a creature of life. And in Genesis 1:30, it actually is used as a creature of life. And in 1:30, we also get beast of life. So we got creature of life, beast of life, as it's talked about in Genesis 1:20 and 1:30. So this is an animal that's a living creature, but it's not an angelic creature. It's certainly not Satan in these types of descriptions. And beast is used 76 times. And all for the similar type of application, as in that physical, earthly realm creature. And in Genesis 3:1, it's a beast of the field, so a beast of the earth. And this is the same type of beast and application that you're going to get in Genesis 7:14 and 7:21 for the recreation or the punishing of the earth after the flood with all these different kinds of animals. So I think when we look at the meanings of the term beast of the field, that is talking about a physical creature that was walking, talking, intelligent, and a role that is not really defined in the Bible as to what position that this creature had. But because it's a serpent kind of being, just as Satan is a serpent as described in Revelation 12, and we're going to come back to that, I think it's probably a favored being of Satan and the seraphims. And I think that leads to, and maybe favored in terms of in charge of things on the earth. But whatever the case is, it's a reptilian being as we understand it, that is loyal to Satan and the fallen angels and the downfall of humankind. And so in Genesis 3:14, after the deception, after the fall of Eve, we learn that it's going to lose its attributes as a punishment. So it loses its legs, it loses its arms or its wings, it loses its intelligence, it loses its ability to speak, and it's going to be forced to crawl on the ground. So it's the Nakash that all of this happens to, and all of its different various forms all around the earth. Now, this doesn't happen to Satan. So if the punishment for having sex as a serpent seed goes was Satan having sex with Eve, then why wouldn't he be punished? But he's not.
Good point. And how come she didn't have giants if a fallen angel mated with her?
We're going to come back to Satan in a few minutes. So that's a very, again, as I say, we're going to talk about some of the outcomes. And that outcome just doesn't fit with the idea of sex. But it does fit with the idea that there was this intelligent being before the fall that beguiled Eve because it was subtle. And so in Genesis 3:13, Eve is saying that she was deceived by the serpent, by this intelligent being, and that she was beguiled. And that's the word nasha. And that means to be deceived, led astray, seduced, but seduced morally. Never is the word nasha for beguile ever used in the Bible in a literal sense to seduce sexually. In the King James Version Bible, the only other words, whether it's seduced, comes from the Hebrew word ta, which also means to cause to go astray. So even though you can use an English understanding of seduce and sex, just as that's one of the basis of the serpent seeds with some of the fruit and the different allegories that they're trying to overlay with a different meaning than what the actual literal narrative says, there's no connection to sex there whatsoever. And that's important because the serpent beguiled Eve, did not have sex with her. And how did the Nakash beguile or deceive Eve? And he said, well, if you eat from the tree that has the fruit of the knowledge of both good and evil, you will not die, but you'll be like gods. And the two pillars for godhood in the polytheist system is that you would have unlimited knowledge and you would have immortality. And in the garden, they had access, Adam and Eve, to the tree of life, as we talked about in part 2. And so the deception is yes, they became knowing. They became knowing of good and evil and probably additional knowledge, and that an aspect like God's, but the consequence for Adam and Eve, just as there was a consequence for the serpent for deceiving Eve in eating this fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, was that Adam and Eve lost access to the tree of life, which Satan would have known and would have probably advised the Nakash accordingly. And so when they lose access to the tree of life, that's the downfall of Adam and Eve as a consequence by breaking the only law, one rule given to them of not eating from the tree, even though they can eat of all the other trees of the garden. Even in the Garden Eden, that was the one they couldn't. They couldn't break. And the consequence was the fall, and we've seen the play out of that through our history. That's going to be fully resolved through the end time and after the millennium. Now, let's move on to Adam.
Moving's hard. Make it easier. Move house with Origin and you could get up to $300 in bill credit. $100 for electricity, $100 for natural gas, and $100 for internet. Origin, all kinds of useful.
It's MotoGP time, and we're celebrating at AMX with a massive MotoGP sale. Get up to tap on the Christmas app. Tap, tap, the Moist Plus app. Every time I shop and every.
Now that we know that there isn't really any sex going on between the cash and Eve by the literal narrative and by the meanings of the word applied properly coming out of Hebrew, God goes to Adam and asks, why he's hiding. And in 3:6, we learn that Adam ate from the tree as Eve did, who gave him the fruit to eat. Okay, so Eve ate of the fruit, Adam ate of the fruit. And then in verse 7, both of their eyes were open. So this seems to be happening very close together. And in 3:11, God asked Adam if he ate from the tree. And Adam says in verse 12, he did. That he actually ate from the tree as Eve did, which is a very important deal. Very important wording. So if he ate of the tree in the serpent seed as a sexual act, as the serpent seed doctrine proposes, and did it the same way as verse 12 talks about, then that means Adam would have had sex with either Satan or the Nakash. And we're not told that. In fact, that's just totally overlooked. So you can't apply one allegory to one and not apply it to the other. So it has to work together. And the only one that works together is that this was not a sexual act. This was being deceived to disobey God, to be like gods. And they ate physically from the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil that they were forbidden to do. And as a consequence, they were banned from Eden. So I don't know how you get more obvious on that unless you want to go down that road, but that's a road that we get no other details in scripture on that Adam would have had sex with Satan or with the Nakash. So I think that in itself, along with so many other things that we talked about in this series, all points towards the literal wording as it's understood in the standard dogma for Eve and Adam ate of the tree. They didn't have sex with Satan or the Nakash. So let's move over to Satan then. So Satan is recorded in Revelation 12:9 as a serpent and as a dragon and as the devil and as Satan. All those names apply to his degraded format as Satan. And a serpent and a dragon are essentially the same thing. It's a flying dragon, or a flying serpent is a dragon. And typically that's understood, or at least I would understand, certain was in part seraphim, as seraphim are recorded in Isaiah 6, six-winged angels. And that would give him a serpent type of form. With the serpent face, a seraph is defined as. He's also a cherubim in Ezekiel 28 who walked amongst the fiery stones. And cherubims don't do that. They only fan and cover the throne for God. But the seraphim, as described in Isaiah 6, work in those fiery stones in the altar before God in a priest-type capacity. And I think Satan was probably a priest-like character, just as Ezekiel describes his role, and combined with Isaiah 14, we get this description including the jewels that seems to be the number of 9 and less of the Levite tribes, but sort of as a vest that would be worn to prepare it to be used as the high priest before God. And that's how far Satan fell, but I'm digressing here. So we're also learning in Ezekiel 28:13 that this anointed cherubim was in Eden. Not necessarily in a seraphic form, but he was in Eden. Maybe he was in a seraphic form. We don't know. But he's both cherubim, high priest, and he's also seraphim, which all makes sense as we look at Isaiah 6. And Satan would have had many titles. It just shows how far he fell. And so we don't get the word seraph showing up at all in the wording in the Garden of Eden. The only time we get seraph showing up other than in Isaiah 6 is in combination with a fiery serpent. So a seraph nakash, as opposed to just serpent being used alone. And typically that's going to denote a seraphim or a seraphim image, as it's applied in Numbers 21:6, Deuteronomy 8:15, Isaiah 14:29, and 36. So when you see fiery serpent in English, that is seraph nakash, which is, I think, describing either an image on earth, probably an image on earth of an angelic being. So a physical nature to the serpent that has wings and a serpent face as a god or a watcher or a seraphim angel. So if that makes sense, then to you, then know that the Hebrew seraph or cherubim is not used, either one, in Genesis 3. So we don't really know what form Satan took. But Nakash is always used alone. So there's no seraphim serpent type of additional overlay to suggest that this was more than just a physical being, is my point on that. But Satan, who was in Eden, because we know as cherubim he was probably in Eden, he was there probably coaching one of his favored beings, and maybe most favored beings of all of the creations of days through 4 through 6. Or
this demonic looking, I don't know what hell.
The Nakash being his avatar. And we know Satan.
Guys, I'll switch over to Paul Begley.
Movie you can ever see, but it had chains on it that would look like boat anchor chains. You know, like on the Titanic boat anchor chains.
Yep.
They were massive chains, and they were wrapped around his body, all wrapped around him. But and then all of it came to a point of a massive lock that was huge. This huge, and he was.
Oh, let me pull him up for you. 1 second. I want you to see it.
Yeah, Vars, he hasn't told us anything new recently, has he?
All right, you don't know what you guys.
He's having more trouble than I usually have.
Here we go.
Was huge. This huge, and he was pulling, and he was fighting, trying to get out of this pit by himself, but he couldn't because the chains were too heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, I saw the angel of the Lord come down and unlock that lock.
Wow!
And those chains fell off of him supernaturally. They went. Because they weren't like real chains. This was something that was binding him by the Spirit of God.
Right.
It wasn't a real like chain. It's symbolic.
Yep.
So I want to make everybody know he's not real. This is the restraint of the hand of the Lord.
Amen.
It's not some boat anchor holding down a devil. This is the hand of God holding him back. But the hand of God released it. But it was symbolic. So all of a sudden, this demonic being shut up out of the pit, and I saw two more behind him. Massive looking creatures, but they were in the Euphrates River area. I could see water that was all cleared out, but the Lord showed me that this is where it was at, right?
Right.
And I saw him come up out of the pit, and he had like, it looked like, and this is going to be out there, and this could be symbolic too, I don't know. Because some of the things I see in part, I hear in part. So He had a fur outfit on. It looked like an animal skin of some kind, like a goat or a sheep skin, but it went across his shoulder like this. He had a sachet, like a thing that went across him, and it looked like it was dingy, burnt flesh.
Oh.
And he come up, and he had horns on his helmet, like a helmet that went up like a Viking.
Wow.
And he started spinning like the Tasmanian devil on the cartoon like Bugs Bunny.
Right, I remember that.
And he started spinning like a tornado. And he became a tornado upon the wind, on the land that looked like an EF5.
Okay.
Started spinning as fast as he could, and he started getting momentum. And he started, and as he started to spin, he started causing destruction throughout the whole world.
Wow.
And as he had an agenda. I could see it. He was angry and he had an agenda, and he went straight to Vladimir Putin. What? And he started, yes, Vladimir Putin. And he started spinning around Vladimir Putin. And this vision was before the Ukraine war.
Yeah. So was mine. Yes.
So he started spinning around him. And the Lord said to me, behold the great Apollyon. This is what we're going to see, is war. And I saw him start spinning all throughout the Middle East, all throughout Israel, all throughout Europe. And he was spinning. And then the countenance on Vladimir Putin went from soft looking, and all of a sudden he got an evil look, like he became demon possessed. And I saw that spirit not possess him, but overshadow him.
I'll stop right there. That is Brandon Biggs. That is the webinar, just a little bit of over an hour of prophecy after prophecy, including the 5 great shakings he saw coming, including 10 cities that are going to come under a terrorist attack in America, including a major city being hit with a special weapon by Russia, and asteroids, and tsunamis, and different things, but also the great end time revival. All of this in an incredible 1-hour interview with Brandon Biggs. And that's just one speaker of this incredible webinar. Please get your tickets. You heard Heidi say, if you can get them tonight, get it tonight. We only got 8 days left. I'm going to read what I wrote in Revelation 9:11. I had my vision in July of 21, and Brandon had his vision of Apollyon in July of 21. We both saw apocalyptic events after Apollyon came out of the pit. And you know, Apollyon, the Bible tells you in Revelation 9:11, then releases these fallen angels from out of the river Euphrates. Now, while I was praying and meditating on the book of Revelation back in July of 2021, I was moved by the Holy Spirit in an open vision that revealed a series of mind-blowing apocalyptic events, much like he has described. It was unparalleled in human history, and it was approaching. These events foretold in the Bible so shake the world that the Apostle Luke even said people's hearts would fail them for fear, for the expectation of these things that's coming on the earth. In the vision, I saw a huge sign, red letters, Revelation 9:11, and I heard the Lord speak to me and say, it's about to happen, warn the people. I picked up my Bible and I read Revelation 9, and as I did, I realized the often overlooked chapter tells the story of a key being given to an angel to open the abyss, the bottomless pit, to release Apollyon. And Apollyon goes out to cause great war including World War III. You can get that book at Amazon.com or get it from me at my website, and I'll sign it for you and leave you a personal note. Also, Dr. Lester Sumrall had a vision of Apollyon in 1987, and it's incredible what he saw when Apollyon came out of the pit. And I'm telling you, Dr. Sumrall saw Apollyon. Brandon Biggs and I saw Apollyon come on the scene and break loose in the same month, July of 21. Putin invaded Ukraine in February of 22. Hamas invaded Israel in October of 23. And President Trump has been on the phone with Putin today, letting him know that the United States has Tomahawk missiles that we can give to Zelensky tomorrow. And Zelensky will use them to fire into Moscow. Putin has been using killer drones and, unleashing hell on the Ukrainian people. We're on the brink of World War III. The NATO nations are preparing. We don't want this. Trump wants peace. And,
Yeah, Apollyon's not one of them four angels in the Euphrates. We know that, eh? Apollyon comes out of the pit and smoke follows with him.
Meanwhile, Trump gets 20 nations to sign
good pickup for us
accord, and Hamas has only given back 8 bodies, and of the 8, 1 was not an Israeli. They test the DNA on all of them every time their coffins come. 7 of them were confirmed. 1 was a Palestinian they just put in the coffin. And Hamas won't lay down their arms like they agreed to. Instead, they're executing 60 of their own people in the street in the middle of broad daylight. Hell has been turned loose on this earth. And we have now the digital wealth. BlackRock, Larry Fink, explaining how they're ready now to put all assets into digital. I'm talking real estate, cash, stocks, bonds, all Bitcoin, all economic transactions. And the whole world of Europe and other nations have embraced the digital ID. It's going into effect in the next few months, just in the next 3 to 4 months. And it will require facial recognition, the iris of your eyes, your fingerprints, and your DNA. And Bill Gates from hell just announced that he has a ability to inject and leave a dot. And that dot is a little small mark. But then these scanners can scan you and it knows whether you have that little bitty dot or not. And drones can fly over populations and can see all the people with the dots and can see all the people that don't have them. Guys, the technology is here. And then China invents this artificial sun. Are you serious? So we're going to have Mike from around the world, as he calls. I can't hardly say much more. And let him help us understand what's happening. God bless you. Joining us right now from somewhere around the world. Mike from around the world. Mike, how you doing?
Pastor Paul, I'm doing okay. I hope your jaw is doing a little better. Try not to talk too much.
I'm not going to talk much. I'm not going to interrupt you much. I'm going to be good, okay? The jaw is still swollen and still hurts from that surgery, but it's the bone spur.
Bone spur.
And now
is that poking out your gum?
Coming through the gum into the tongue. This is the 4th one since the surgery. And this one is hurting every word I speak.
they've got little pads for that, Pastor Paul, that you can actually, that will adhere to the gum for about 4 or 5 hours.
Whew.
That'll block it from touching your, anything else.
Yeah, and that's great.
Because you'll rub your tongue raw and
Oh, yeah.
scrape everything raw doing
Oh
that.
yeah, it's terrible. All
Yeah.
right, I gotta find out how to get that. Okay. All right, thank you for that, Mike. I'm gonna try to get that tomorrow. Mike, wow, what a week, huh?
Big week.
Wow.
Big week.
I know we want to talk about Trump, Putin, and Zelensky, but can we start with Trump, the Middle East signing, Hamas, and what's going on there?
Yeah. Yeah, of course, Hamas is not, they're not adhering to some of the peace, right? They're not.
No.
And I cannot help but to see a big part of the book of Daniel coming into effect now. Because President Trump is dealing with hatred. You just can't wipe hatred away with money. That's not going to work. And in the Middle East, it is well known that vengeance is, they keep vengeance within themselves for the most part. You can't get rid of that. You're not going to buy them off for anything else. And Hamas is darker than anyone suspects. They're very dark, and they're all over the place, right? I would say Hamas is on every continent. So they really haven't largely coordinated everything they can do.
Are there a lot of them
But
here
they
in
will.
America?
Yes, a whole bunch ever since I had that episode where they were crawling like rodents underneath the ground here in the USA. I've been hunting, and we have quite the problem. And they're not illegals, right? They're born here. Think of that. Think of Hamas individuals. You cannot tell they are Hamas. They're born here. They look like everybody else. So we certainly have mounting attacks coming. I just really hope that people can be aware. The church has had a reprieve through President Trump because he's not against the church. And so the church can actually freely do things right now. And I hope that that is really taken advantage of, because I suspect when they act, they're really going to act. It's mounting, as well, and the hatred is mounting.
They're executing, it's up to 60, and maybe it's more, Mike, of their own people.
They do have a plan to do that here.
Oh, what?
Yep, they do. Yeah, they do. It's in today's world, when something is not made public, it's almost absent from the mind, right? Sadly, there are many things in development that are not published, that are not printed or talked about, because they don't want to ruin, some of the successes that have come. But people should be aware that we have enemies on all sides, and it's really, I see a big coordinated effort in the Middle East, and we're going to see it. We're going to see it quite soon.
Also, Mike, let's move to Trump's phone call with Putin and Trump's meeting tomorrow with Zelensky, and how Trump and Putin, I guess, have agreed to meet in a few weeks in Hungary. Is this Putin using a delay tactic on Trump? What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, okay. Here's one of my biggest dilemmas with Putin. First of all, back in 2015, right? Or 16, one of those days. I had this weird dream about Putin, right? And I've told this several times in COT, but Putin was, things happened. There was a meeting under some white tents or white structure near the sea on concrete. That meeting actually happened. It actually took place.
Wow.
But here's the bad part. In this dream, Putin was assembled with Middle Eastern armies, Chinese armies, so he had Asian folks there, he had Middle Eastern folks there, he had African folks there, and he had a bunch of his naval personnel there, right? He was in underneath this very large, this white area, all the way down this concrete structure. There was a map on the wall.
Okay.
That map had 3 big circles on it with some smaller circles. Now this was ISIS went to the Middle East. This was before Russia was dispatched to the Middle East. This was during the Obama administration. And I saw the US president talk to Putin, and they just blew him off. They didn't believe him. They underrated him. Right after the US president left, and they were laughing nonchalantly, he dispatched, and I told this before it ever happened, because this one I believe I told at 1 a.m. or something like that, because it really disturbed me and I had a sense of urgency. But underneath that hangar, he began to give orders to the Navy, to the Middle Eastern folks, and to the Africans, and to the Asian personnel, ground forces in the Middle East, Russian Navy, ground forces in Africa, right? That's just personnel to the Middle East and set up that base, remember? That,
I do.
the naval base. And then that's also when ISIS was dispatched, right?
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't believe who's behind it. Putin is not really what you think he is. Anyway, he had these large targets. When the president left, his countenance shifted. He was very direct. He had his plan. Nothing was going to sway him against his plan of taking territories. That's one of the reasons I knew he was going into Crimea.
Mm-hmm.
I knew he was not going to give up to Ukraine.
Yep.
And no matter how much they talk now, Putin is not going to sway his mentality.
Right.
In this dream, underneath those, when he went back to that targeting map, I could see those big circles. In fact, this is frightening to even share, because I know at some point he's going to put together the largest naval assault anybody's ever seen. Putin will. He will command. He commanded all those forces, Asian forces, that's China.
Okay.
African forces. They just came on the scene in the last 2 years. And of course, his naval forces, which are all of the money in Russia has been devoted to naval forces. All of that money has been devoted to that. So he's not going to be easily swayed. He's not. He will put together a coalition. He will shift and change. He kind of blew Trump off this time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And he did so arrogantly. He's very difficult to read. He'll smile in your face and everything else, but he's one of those people. It's kind of like some of the people here in the USA. You have 2 Christians and one rents another Christian some property. The one Christian doesn't have the money to pay that property. So the other Christian kicks him out and says, well, our faith is faith, but business is business. So he separates the two. That's Putin. Putin can smile in your face, but then he'll say, well, this is our heritage, and nobody will stand in the way of that. So that's what happened with him. So I do not believe Putin is going for any peace initiative anytime soon, not until this large offensive is launched. And to date, he's irritated at the USA. He is infuriated at Israel. He has been talking behind the scenes to all the Middle Eastern groups, right?
Yeah.
He's actually commanded Hamas a few times, right? Through certain commands he had in Syria. So Putin has been doing quite a bit. And he's not afraid of tomahawks. I mean, I hate to spoil that, but he's not afraid of tomahawks. Putin has not used his main forces. He has not.
You've been saying that.
So yeah, it's a very dangerous thing to say things to the public to get them encouraged. That's good, but we're going to see the reality of this situation. It's going to look like something positive is happening. That's his stall measure.